The meeting will begin shortly. This is the first public meeting for the Little Manatee South Urban Expansion Area Study. While we wait for everyone else to arrive, please begin by letting us know what you hope to take away from tonight's meeting. The comments and questions that you have may be typed into the Q&A box. If you need technical assistance, our team is standing by to assist you. To open the Q&A box, look for that Q&A button that is appearing on your screen. Look for that at the bottom or at the edge of your screen and click that, and the Q&A function will open up for you. We're going to give it a few minutes for some others to join before we get started. But please, in the Q&A, please go ahead and let us know any initial questions you have or what you hope to get out of tonight's meeting. Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes. While we wait for others to join, please go ahead and open up the Q&A box and let us know if you have any initial questions or what you hope to get out of tonight's meeting. We have our team on the line ready to answer any of your questions. Welcome, everyone. The meeting will begin shortly. While we wait for everyone to arrive, please go ahead and type in the Q&A box any initial questions that you have or what you hope to get out of tonight's meeting. Our team is standing by and we'll be able to answer those questions throughout the course of the meeting. We'll get started in just one more minute. Welcome, everyone. For those who just joined, while we wait for everyone to arrive, please go ahead and open up the Q&A box and type in any initial questions that you have or what you're hoping to get out of tonight's meeting. Our team is standing by to be able to answer your questions throughout the course of the meeting, and this meeting is being recorded. Okay, welcome everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the first public meeting for the Little Manatee South Urban Expansion Area Study. This meeting is hosted by the Planning Commission in collaboration with Hillsborough County, with support from a team of consultants. My name is Stephen Benson. I'm the consultant project manager, and I'll be giving you a brief overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll start the meeting with a welcome from the Planning Commission staff, an overview of the purpose of this meeting, and then introduce you to the speakers and facilitators. We'll then go over the background of the study as well as the scope and schedule. Our presenters will review the specific study area with you and review some of the existing conditions as well as the last community plan, which was adopted in 2010. This study includes a real estate market analysis that looks into the future and estimates what the market demand is in the surrounding areas. And we will hear about that from our real estate and economic advisor during this presentation. Then you'll have an opportunity to have one-on-one discussions with individual presenters in a series of breakout rooms before we wrap up and discuss next steps. And with that, I'll hand it off to Sophia.
Thank you, Stephen. You can go to the next slide. As Stephen mentioned, my name is Sofia Garantiva. I'm a principal planner with the Planning Commission and one of the project managers for the Planning Commission side. For those of you who don't know, the Planning Commission is an independent, multi-jurisdictional comprehensive planning agency, and it's led by a board of appointed citizens. It serves unincorporated Hillsborough County, Tampa, City of Tampa, Plant City, and Temple Terrace. And we are responsible for developing the state-mandated comprehensive plans, which guide how and where the community will grow over the next 20 years. The Planning Commission makes recommendations on land use decisions to the Board of County Commissioners. This includes requested changes to the comprehensive plan and special land use related studies such as this one. Next slide. So this meeting is part of the first round of community meetings for the Urban Expansion Area Planning Study for the Little Manatee South area. The study itself will be completed in 4 stages. Community meetings will be held during each stage, 1 virtual, such as tonight, and 2 in person, which are next week. The purpose of this round of meetings is to get input as part of the existing conditions stage. As you can see, stage number 1. And the conclusion, recommendations will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners at the end of the study after stage 4. For more information on the scope, and the study will be presented shortly. Thank you, Stephen. There are multiple ways to stay engaged and participate. You can sign up to receive email updates or submit public comment by visiting the project website. You can attend one of the two additional meetings that I mentioned earlier next week at the South County Career Acceleration Academy. The first one will be Thursday, February 5th from 6 to 8, and the second one will be on Saturday, February 7th from 11 to 2. And you can scan the QR code, which will also take you to the project website for more information. Uh, you, the other way you can participate is completing the survey associated with this area, which will be on the project page. You can also continue to stay involved throughout the next three phases of the project through all these methods, and you will find also our contact information on the project website as well. Next slide. So a little bit more about tonight's meeting. This presentation will take approximately 30 minutes. After the presentation, we do invite you to stay on the call to join a virtual breakout room where you can dive deeper into some specific topics that are be presented and we can answer some questions and just have a little bit more dialogue. All the information will be posted on the project webpage, including the recording of this presentation and the supporting images and maps in the presentation slides themselves. Next slide. And then how to participate in this meeting. Stephen mentioned it a little bit at the opening, but you could submit questions and comments at any time by clicking the Q&A box. I see a lot of folks are already doing that, so thank you. It is located at the edge of your screen. You can also like and comment on what other participants have written. You'll also see that host announcements will appear in the chat box as well. We have put a few uh, announcements in the chat box for you to take a look at, including the links to the websites. We'll also be providing you, again, with links to the websites. So one more time, just so everybody is aware, this meeting is being recorded. So thank you for your patience. And then introductions and project roles. So I already introduced myself, and so did Stephen. On the meeting tonight here, we have Andrea Papandreou, who is the co-project manager for the Planning Commission on this project. Victoria Durand, who is performing supporting duties, as well as Jay Collins. We also have Daniel Agbenu, who is helping us with tech support. Um, so if anybody has any issues, you can reach out to him uh, during the breakout room session, which we'll get to. On the consultant team, again, Stephen Benson, we also have Tom Lavash, Alan Steinbeck, which all will be presenting tonight. We also have Fatima Elcott, who also will be presenting, and Jason Gonzalez, who is on as well for any technical support. With that, I will hand it back over to Stephen.
Great, thank you so much. Now we are going to get into the background, the scope, and the schedule. So in March of 2024, the Board of County Commissioners directed staff to study two areas of the county for possible future expansion of the urban service area. Shown on your screen are maps of those two areas. The first area is the area along Interstate 4, roughly between Tampa and Plant City. The second area, which is the subject of tonight's meeting, is the Little Manatee South area or a portion of that area, and that is shown on the left-hand side of your screen. So the remainder of our meeting tonight is going to be focused on just the Little Manatee South area. The scope of this study is really focused on what we call the urban service area. The urban service area is a growth management tool that was established in the comprehensive plan in 1993. The plan envisions no less than 80% of new growth and redevelopment occurring within that urban service area boundary. As land is developed and redeveloped, the urban service area has continuously become more and more constrained. Based on current projections, that 80% threshold may not be met by 2040. More information about the urban service area specifically can be found at the website on your screen. That's the Plan Hillsborough website and the urban service area page. The comprehensive plan also establishes the concept of urban expansion areas. And the purpose of urban expansion areas are to plan for future population and job growth in an efficient manner while addressing infrastructure demands, housing and job needs, natural and rural area preservation, as well as just overall quality of life. At the end of this study, we will be producing an urban expansion area plan for Little Manatee South, and it will address a variety of topics, all of the topics that are shown on your screen. Locations for potential urban or potential suburban development, looking at where uses should be mixed, focusing on trying to reduce trip lengths and just promote overall efficiency. Potentially identifying areas where it would be appropriate to have a gradual transition, especially adjacent to rural and agricultural areas, potentially recommending the creation of new future land use categories, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this slideshow, potentially identifying amendments to the community plan, which we will talk about later, gathering input from property owners, which is what the purpose of tonight's meeting is, looking at potential public service needs, ensuring that natural systems are maintained, looking at transportation needs, evaluating and analyzing the fiscal impact of growth, which we'll talk about shortly, and then reviewing fees and funding sources to make sure that the county is able to pay for long-term needs. Briefly looking here at the project schedule, these are those four stages that Sophia mentioned earlier. We're here in stage one. We'll be going into stage two later on this spring. That's when we'll be looking at different land uses within the study area and pulling out maps and talking about growth and change and things to preserve and things that we want to see stay the same. In stage three is when we'll be identifying a preferred alternative scenario. And then in stage four is when we'll really be refining that scenario and getting ready to finalize this plan and produce it as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And now we're going to be going into just an overview of the study area itself. And you'll hear from myself as well as my colleague Alan, who will introduce himself now.
Hey everyone, I'm Alan Steinbeck. I have been assigned to be the point person, be the liaison between the technical work that's going on in the study area and this broader team and you all. So I'm pleased to be doing that. You will see me in person at the community meetings, and my role will be to help translate some of the technical work that's going on this study to anyone who's interested, and also bring back commentary from you all as we listen to you and engage with you as a way to shape the recommendations that we will be making. So I and my colleague Amanda will be making recommendations for this area based on our technical work and this feedback and floating them up the flagpole, if you will, as a part of the study. You see in larger view here the study area defined for Little Manatee South, and Stephen described it, but it's a very large area. We're covering that area west of 41, east of 75, and up to the river, all the way down to Manatee County. Next slide, please. We did receive a proposed study area. We recommended altering the boundaries of that, and I wanted to just explain that a little bit for those of you who may be following along from the very beginning of this process. When we looked at recommendations from prior plans and studies and saw the new proposed interchange, we recommended expanding the study area east of 75 a little bit, understanding that a future interchange may impact development, and then expanding the area west of 41 into those places that aren't preservation, and also into parcels that are partially not in preservation, to try to encapsulate all of the potentially developed area in this study. The purpose was to understand context, and I did want to note that our final recommendations may not cover the entire study area. It's not our intent out of the gate here to expand the urban service area over this area. We just need to understand it so we can make some proper recommendations in light of the context. What you're viewing on this slide is a map of existing land use, and this isn't meant to show what's on the ground today from a typological standpoint. You will see most of the common land here is agricultural. You see in the green, which is a designation covering what's happening now and has a very low density residential character to it. There are areas of single family and mobile and manufactured homes, mostly in the northern area of the study area that you see in orange in the blue area there. And then clusters of heavy and light industrial in certain areas. There are some parcels that are in those sort of uses, but they're not very large and not very many of them. This map shows the future land use, which is a policy map from the comprehensive plan that Sophia and Stephen were describing. And it indicates the future land use categories that are available and anticipated. These categories are adopted in the comprehensive plan and they directly enable zoning. And in Florida, your zoning must match your future land use. So anything that is developed must be developed under these categories, or an amendment would be requested if some development doesn't meet them. The most common future land use is agricultural residential, and it is shown in green and has a very low density policy to it for residential. The second most common is residential one and two, and you see those areas identified in yellow and lighter green. And then residential four and six are along the Manatee River in the darker yellow and orange. You'll notice that future land use follows a lot of the development that's out there, and a lot of times in these areas, these types of rural areas in the county, the future land use will follow the development, and you can see those categories are pretty much showing what's on the ground today. There's very little planned for those sort of residential categories that's not already developed in some way. There is some light industrial planned along in the gray colors along 41 in Valroy and Sun City, and a limited amount of that future land use category is available on the 41 corridor.
Okay, so as part of this study, our consultant team performed an analysis of the environmental sensitivity of the area. And what that analysis did is it took a large amount of different layers of information and we used them to produce a ranking. And what the ranking is showing you on the screen is every piece of land in the study area ranked from least environmentally sensitive, which is the white, to most environmentally sensitive, which is the darker and the black color. The layers that we used to determine that include land cover, significant wildlife habitat, the FEMA flood zones, our sensitive basins when it comes to water quality, our impaired waterways, the ones that we know that already have issues, wellhead resource protection areas, as well as historic waste disposal sites. We're also showing on the screen the lands that were acquired or lands that were previously part of the Environmental Lands Acquisition and Protection Program. Those are shown with the diagonal hatch mark in either the blue or the green color. And those are overlaid on top of environmental sensitivity.
Our team has looked at the Little Manatee South Community Plan from 2010 to understand what was included and what was discussed at that time. The community plan does anticipate some future urban service area expansion with a focus of development along US 41 and walkable village centers, which you see in the dots along 41 there, which is shown in that dotted dash line. It also includes recommendations for transit-oriented development, given that at the time there was a major study going on in the county for all kinds of transit, including commuter rail transit, which extended down into this area. Those recommendations are no longer on the books, but that's why that TOD is in there, the transit-oriented development. There's a recommendation for corporate parks where there's job-centric non-residential development that allows for different types of businesses and uses, allowing for jobs and for goods and services to be included in this area. In terms of residential, there's a recommendation for small lot clustered residential enclaves surrounded by open space. And this includes the area west of 75 with an emphasis on preserving the rural and natural character of the area. And these clusters may include clustered development, which is what we call in the planning space, which has development where the houses are close together, but even on the property where development is happening, there's preserved open space. So as the area would be developed, open space would be preserved as a function of development, not just land acquisition as it's going on now at the county. The plan also has a system of connecting trails and recommends those trails for recreation and practical use to get around this area of the county.
Okay, and now we'll hand it off to Tom to talk about some of our demographics, jobs, and housing information.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, everyone. I am Tom Lavash, and our firm is leading the real estate market study for both Little Manatee South as well as the I-4 corridor, which will be after this. And we have collected a significant amount of data, and in fact have over 100 data tables as part of our analysis in the real estate market study. And we have some information to share tonight. We have sort of a two-part presentation. The next several slides will focus specifically on existing conditions within the core study area, highlighted in green there. And we'll come back in a few minutes to speak about the larger surrounding geography, the market study area, and some findings we have gleaned from that and what real estate development potentials there may be over the next 25 years. Stephen, next slide, if you could. What we found in terms of demographics, and demographics is an all-encompassing term that can include metrics such as population, household incomes, what households are spending on retail in any given year, job growth, age cohorts as it affects demand for housing or schools, for example. A whole range of information that we collect at the same time that we are collecting information on real estate market conditions on the ground. And all of that information collectively is used to help our analysis of what does it mean for the future. And what we found is interesting that average household size in the core study area is smaller than the county as a whole, which is about 2.54 people per household. You're also older than the county as a whole, 54 years old versus about 38 years old as a median age. There are about 8,800 residents and 3,500 households, and we're going to come back to this issue of households and housing units. And over the last 15 years or so, this study area has grown by about 1,700 or so residents. But more recently, next slide, if you could, Stephen. More recently, that growth has accelerated, and that's an important takeaway from tonight. The Planning Commission's forecasts for 2050, so 25 years from now, suggest that there will be about 3,800 residents in the core study area. And one of the objectives of the market study is to test or to evaluate that and then understand how does that translate on the ground for new housing, new jobs we'll speak to as well. Next slide, Stephen. Interestingly, Hillsborough County added 180,000 new jobs in a 15-year window between 2008 and 2022. That's the latest data available from the Census Bureau. And by comparison, our core study area added about 275 new jobs. And the largest sector is every one of us who is employed works in a specific industry sector. For example, I'm in professional services. Wholesale trade would be the Amazon warehouse up on 75 in Ruskin, for example. But wholesale and retail trade is the largest sector of jobs in our study area. The Planning Commission's forecasts for 2050 suggest in this geography about 1,600 new jobs. And our role as the real estate market analysts is to understand how does that translate into whether it's office jobs and what that means for office space, if it's industrial jobs and industrial parks, or if it's retail jobs how might that what might that mean for new retail centers moving forward? The image here simply illustrates the jobs per square mile. And you can see along the 301 corridor, I think examples of employers over in that corridor east of our core study area would be something like Pacific Tomato Growers. And there are a number of smaller businesses along the 301 corridor, as well as the 41 corridor. Stephen, next slide, if I could. Just some metrics, if you will, on housing in our core study area. Strong owner occupancy, which is above the countywide average, which is about 57%. Conversely, fewer renter occupied households or housing units, about 10%, compared to about 36 or 37% countywide. And on the other hand, more of the housing units in our study area are seasonally occupied. And that may be a function of occupancy by farm workers, migrant workers who are here employed in agriculture, and perhaps a few snowbirds as well. What was striking to us in the data that we collected on housing for the study area was that more than half of the housing units in LMS are mobile homes, manufactured homes. You have lower housing values relative to the county as a whole, and not surprisingly, rents have increased as they have in every jurisdiction around the country, and particularly since the pandemic.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Now we're going to have a brief discussion on the existing conditions of infrastructure and other public facilities, and Alan and I will be presenting these slides.
We have gone through and done some due diligence, talking to county staff and departments, a pretty deep dive on water and wastewater. We wanted to understand the structural opportunities and limitations to growth and development, and this is one of the biggest ones there is. What you're seeing on the map and north of the study area, which is shown in hashed red at this point, is the purple area shows the boundary of Hillsborough County's water service area. And in the hashed area is the sewer service area. You'll see one little outcropping of service into the Little Manatee South study area. That is not a function of the county really wanting to expand its own services in here. It was a function of acquiring a private development and serving a development that was not intended to be put on the county system initially. The county has effectively no facilities in the current study area, and everyone's on well septics and closed private systems for the in this part of the county. Existing facilities in the area, this area shown in purple, are near capacity, and there are some planned service expansions in South County, but they will not serve this area of the county, Little Manatee South, as you see LMS there in the slide bullet. The growth and development that is planned and approved is basically taking up all of the potential for new capacity in that water system. So that plant will not serve Little Manatee South. It's already spoken for, if you will, by other development north of the river. There are three general ways to increase service in Little Manatee South. One is extend pipes across the Little Manatee River, and that is a capacity problem. The second is private sector builds new facilities here and transfers ownership to the county. So that is possible to happen as a new plant or something happens. And the third is to extend pipes north from Manatee County through some kind of interlocal agreement. And you can see in blue there, right at the county line, Manatee County has their entire part of the county there covered by water and sewer. So it would be possible to extend it into Hillsborough County if that were the path forward. Next slide. We also looked at public safety. There are no fire stations within the study area. The nearest are in Ruskin and Sundance that you see in the blue dots. There are two proposed stations along US 41 that are unfunded and currently low priority in the master plan for these types of facilities. And you see those in green there along 41. The boundaries are the 5-minute drive time, or I'm sorry, 4-minute travel time, which is the standard level of service that they look at to try to achieve a high level of service from these stations. And new stations could certainly relieve pressure at the existing stations, but it's unlikely to see one in Little Manatee South before other parts of the county are satisfied where there's a higher priority need, like the ones you see in green east of Ruskin that are in areas of much more advanced development pressure in the county.
So the map that is on your screen now is the existing transportation system as well as some planned and programmed improvements. The only major road in the study area currently is US 41. I-75 does pass through the study area, but there are no existing access points. So to access I-75, you have to go up to Ruskin or down into Manatee County. But otherwise, there's a very limited local street network generally throughout the area. CSX does provide freight rail service parallel to US 41. It is an important connection, especially for Port Manatee, which is just to the south. Some of you have also mentioned in some of the Q&A the proposed new major roadway through the center of the study area, the Fort Hammer Road extension, as well as the associated new proposed interchange at I-75 that is shown on the map here. I think you can see my mouse. And the yellow star is where generally where the proposed interchange is expected to be placed. There are multi-use trails proposed along both US 41 and I-75. However, those are both unfunded. There is a minor resurfacing project on US 41. That project should be completed before the study is completed. And then on I-75, there are plans to widen I-75 from 6 lanes to 12 lanes. That is currently being studied by the Florida DOT, and future phases of that project are not currently funded. As far as other public facilities, this map shows parks, schools, as well as solid waste service areas. There are 3 parks in the study area. The largest park is the Cockroach Creek Greenway Nature Preserve. That's just over 500 acres down off of Valroy Road. You see the other parks on the screen, most of which are located along the Little Manatee River. The zoned schools for this area are all located outside of the city area. For elementary, it's Ruskin or Cypress Creek, depending upon which side of I-75 you live on, Shields Middle School, and then Leonard or Morgan High School, again, depending upon which side of I-75 you live on. About half of the study area is served by the trash curbside collection. That's shown in the hatched red lines on the screen, and then about a third of the area is within the recycling curbside collection area. That is shown in pink. And now we'll pass it back to Tom to talk about what he sees in the future for Little Manatee South.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. You can jump to the next slide. So as I noted several minutes ago, why a market study? I think above all, most importantly, it's really to ensure that what comes out of our planning effort and recommendations really are grounded in economic and market realities. And all of the information and data that we are collecting through the course of the project, it is used to measure future development potentials. And of course, translate that into demand. For example, what households spend on retail impacts demand on the amount of retail space. As part of the market study, I wanted to touch on the map on this slide. In any market study, we want to look at a larger geography to understand what's happening around the region, and then how might that affect potentials for the future of the core study area in Little Manatee South. So collectively, the consultant team and the Planning Commission staff identified 6 areas surrounding LMS that include Apollo Beach, Ruskin, Sun City Center, Wamama, and a geography in northern Manatee County that we are calling the Northern Manatee Study Area. And we've the 100 plus data tables that I noted previously has information on each of these geographies, both demographics and real estate market conditions. And all of that information will ultimately be included in the market study report for the project. Next slide, Stephen. Um, so just a couple of metrics, and there are some important takeaways from this particular slide. In this larger 6-area geography, households spend on average about $25,000 a year on retail. So that's collectively about $1.9 billion. That is significant spending power. Now, that spending can occur anywhere in the universe, from Peoria to Paris, and doesn't necessarily translate into opportunities on the ground. But one of the key questions in a market study is, how can we enhance capture so that you're reducing trips on 301 or 75 and spending your money locally? What we found, Stephen, back one, thank you. What we found, and this is another important metric, significant population growth. You are growing by about 6,900 people per year over the last 15 years. By comparison, you've only added about 580 jobs per year in this larger study area geography. And what that translates to in the graphic on this slide is that means that every day, more than 52,500 people who live in this geography are leaving the geography to work elsewhere. So, that's contributing to traffic congestion on all of the obvious roadways. Also, notably, the job growth varies by sector. This study area lost over 2,000 agricultural jobs as agricultural land is being converted to other uses. And one of the metrics we look at as real estate analysts is what we call the jobs to population ratio. And what that simply means here is that there are about 19 jobs for every 100 residents who live in this area, compared to the countywide average of 42. It reinforces the fact that participants in the labor force, are leaving this area to work elsewhere, whether it's downtown Tampa, West Shore, St. Pete, or Bradenton, for example. Next slide, Stephen. And then within this 6 sub-area geography, growth varies pretty significantly. Apollo Beach and northern Manatee are growing quite quickly, as is Wamama in terms of its rate of growth, but its overall absolute growth is a little bit lower than some of the others. A striking finding for us and illustrative of the development pressure I think that this area is facing is that as a whole, this 6-area geography grew at an annual rate of over 5% per year. That is significantly higher than the countywide average of 1.63% per year. So what that translated to is over 100,000 new residents in over 37,000 new households. And for purposes of this discussion, we're going to assume that a single household is the equivalent of a single housing unit. Next slide, Stephen. We looked at metrics or in market conditions for the housing market, and just a couple of factoids, if I may. Over the past 15 years, on average, 1,800 new housing units are being built annually in this 6-area geography. And that is translating into 290 acres of land a year are being consumed by new housing. I think that's a significant finding and is illustrative, again, of the development pressure that this area is facing. Since about 2022, this 6-area geography has added about 5,000 new multifamily units. And the second bullet point is that they're being built faster than the market can absorb, or than those units can be leased. Means that the vacancy rate has increased to about 11% in the multifamily market, but that demand is strong. Those new units are being absorbed or leased to the tune of about 600 units a year. So that while the vacancy rate has increased temporarily, demand is sufficiently strong that the vacant units that remain today should be absorbed fairly quickly by the market. Next slide, Stephen. we looked at what we call workplace uses. And in the real estate industry, that is simply office space and industrial space. And the office inventory that exists in this study area is really illustrated best by an example in the top photo. These are what we call garden office buildings, and they're small buildings, generally less than 10 or 15,000 square feet in size. And in this area, there's about 1 million square feet of office space in our study area. Compared to that as a proportion, there are about 76 million square feet countywide. And the demand for office space in these smaller buildings is really, it's the State Farm agent, it's a doctor, dentist, attorney, that sort of professional services, really driven by rooftop growth or demand driven by households who are moving to this area. By comparison, the industrial market in this six sub-area geography is larger, about 4.8 million square feet compared to it's what's 117 million square feet, I think, countywide. There's significant demand for warehousing and storage related uses in the industrial market. And County Line Road over in near Plant City would be a good example of that, or the new buildings that are being built in Ruskin at South Shore Corporate Park, and the Amazon related uses and functions. And that's consuming about, on average, 23 acres a year. So more land is being consumed than the office market. But all of this illustrates that the market for these uses, both office and industrial, is strong, is growing. Lower vacancy rates, continued job growth will continue to fuel that demand. And that is important as we begin to think about how that translates for uses in the future. Next slide, Steve. I think you skipped one on retail. Thank you. Interestingly, the amount of retail space in this six sub-area geography is about half of what it is countywide. So that while your population is growing quickly, retail is not growing at a parallel pace. And what that means is that, how many of you are leaving to go to shop in Brandon or elsewhere in Hillsborough County or down in Manatee County, for example? And that reflects pent-up demand, that there is sufficient demand that households can support more retail in the study area. The market is strong, low vacancy rates, increasing rents, and consuming about 10 acres of land a year over the course of the last 15 years. Next slide, Stephen. What does this all mean? When we go into the breakout room, I think I'm room number 1 for the market study, we can share significantly more data as you wish. But what this means, the analysis suggests, is that the continued population and household growth, and we tested 3 different models that reflect 3 different growth rates, suggests that there will be demand for anywhere from 10 to 33,000 more housing units by 2050. That in terms of employment growth on the office and industrial side, another 250,000 square feet of demand for new office space based on job growth. Again, we tested multiple scenarios for those office and industrial uses. And so 250,000 square feet would translate into dozens more of those smaller garden office buildings that we illustrated on the previous slide. And likewise, strong demand for industrial. That 1.2 million square feet is basically the equivalent of another Amazon warehouse. And likewise for retail, 1.4 million square feet of retail suggests that could be roughly 10 or 12 grocery anchored community centers, where Publix is located, for example. So we can go into more information in our breakout room. I appreciate your forbearance in this as we talk about a lot of numbers. Stephen.
Great, thank you so much. Now we are going to shift into the breakout rooms. To join a breakout room, click the button on the screen that says breakout rooms. If you don't see that button, you may have to click the more button first. And that button is, example is shown here on the right-hand side. To come back into the main room once you've finished, or if you want to get back out and join a different breakout room, you can do that by hitting the leave button. But make sure you hit leave breakout room, not leave meeting. Breakout rooms will not be recorded, and we will reconvene in the main room in just a few minutes. It says 6:55. We'll see if we can give it a little bit longer since we did run a little bit long with the presentation. So please, at this time, you may click the breakout rooms button and then join one of the four breakout rooms. The options on your screen are what should be reflected in that button. It's breakout room 1 with Tom to go over the real estate market study. Breakout room 2, which is an overview with the existing conditions presenters. Breakout room 3 is with Jay. That's going over understanding the policy and just the overall process. And then breakout room 4 with Fatima going over a mapping activity where we'll look at community assets and things that you'd like to see change or stay the same in the study area. So please go ahead and um, join us in the breakout rooms. And if you have any questions, of course,